everyone, to today's program. Man, I have some news for you all here on the God Tender Loving Care Network. Are you dealing with a tyrant at work? A dictator? I mean, I am dealing with one of the scummiest scumbags. And I've dealt with different clients all throughout the years. But this specific situation is really quite amusing. Um, I'm trying to, I'm doing my best to laugh it all off. But it is a very unfortunate situation. We all know that the most racist and xenophobic states in the United States are Wisconsin and Minnesota. The two racist, by fact. These are facts. You can look these up. These are two racist sisters, two racist brothers, xenophobic, monocultural. People say vanilla. And I haven't used any of those terms. I've been working with the contractors in those two various areas, and really being very gracious, very thankful and appreciative. But they consistently hand me a bunch of shit, and it isn't more duties or work exactly per se. It is that, but it's a lot of dealing with their lack of diversity. There is low to no equity in Minnesota and Wisconsin. I mean, Minnesota is horrendous for how it treats its Latinos. And I mean, you all know how they treat their blacks. Who is in charge of most, if not the majority, of the schools in Minnesota? Who are the principals? Who are the business owners? Who are these entrepreneurs that get away with the most? I worked with a client before in a sector, and she was managing kids and children. Think about like a daycare facility. And they busted her, the district busted her for drinking and driving. She was all over the news. And I worked with her. I would see her every day, every other day in the office, on site. And guess what they did? They gave her a week's paid off as a slap on the wrist. And then they gave her job back after that. But she was paid all throughout. Now, what I'm currently dealing with right now is a very racist, xenophobic, bitter, white woman, white man. And, it comes so close to voting that I'm appalled that in this country where my family, my ancestors, my direct lineage, my nucleus, my father, my grandfather died for this country in the military, that they fought for the discrimination that I, as a professor, as a scientist, as a case manager, as an entrepreneur, am dealing with. They keep coming up with reasons to discriminate, and they are inherently xenophobic. Now, the thing about here in the Midwest is that you get a lot of white people who have a lot of white guilt when the microphone is placed in front of their face, when the cameras are on. But behind closed doors, they are the most racist, xenophobic group in existence. So vanilla, so monocultural, so monoracial, so monolingual, they're limited. And they judge everyone else. Now, this is ridiculous. I was servicing a site, and they had a bunch of presentations. And guess who, on diversity and equity? And it was a white man and woman who took over the microphone, took over the camera, the spotlight, and started talking about how Minnesota, Wisconsin, schools, education, there's so much racism and xenophobia. Now, if you look at the numbers, Hispanics, Latinos are treated the worst, the lowest paid. And they're usually throwing out, regardless of where you're from, if you were born in the United States, all you are is an illegal to them, and they treat you that way, as if you're illegal. And this spans all over Minnesota, from the south of Minnesota to the west and east and north of Minnesota, Wisconsin as well. Super segregated, not very wholesome environments, and places that do not allow you to thrive unless you are white. There's so many lack of opportunities, and then when we tap into a little bit of opportunity because of our accolades, our hard work, our ethic, etc., our professional development, our credentials, who is in charge? I am going to ask you, No matter how many years you went to school, how many certifications you've acquired, or even how many languages you speak, the white man and woman is in charge. And the white woman wants to cry, the white man, and deflect. But they're just as racist as the white men who are in charge. You have white men administrators and you have white women managers. And they are horrible for society. They're poison. And you can be cordial, and maybe for the first month or so, it's cordial enough if they need it, right? Because they have someone breathing down their neck. They have to meet certain numbers. They bring on a contractor. They bring on a service provider like myself. And for the first month, it's okay when they need you. And then when as time goes on, you see their little racist, xenophobic tendencies bleed through their skin and through their words. I don't want to get very specific. I'll get as specific as I can. But I am very appalled by Minnesotans, Wisconsin, and these are the two most racist states. So when it comes to equity, diversity, white people, shut the fuck up, okay? If you're a white administrator, you should not be in power. These should be positions delegated to a committee. There should be diverse groups. Why is there one principal? Why is there one dean? Why is there one superintendent? And most likely, they're a white man and a white woman who have given each other that privilege. Now, why is not power more equally dispersed? That would be a better system. Then HR can't discriminate on me. I'm not forced to tell you what my race is. Yeah, you're still going to discriminate me because of the way that I look, of my surname. So you all read about this on the news. You know what's going on out in the world. Minnesota racist. That's what it is. Minnesota xenophobia. Even Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian, said that he had to do a bit. He had to do a show in Minnesota. And Gabriel Iglesias said, oh, yeah, the Howleys were built there. They're so racist that everything from their grain is racism and xenophobia. How do you think they're going to treat a Latino like me? Horrible. And you go up to the museums, and they have a little blip on how Hispanics and Latinos are paid the least in this society in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, I've serviced other districts. I've lived in other places. I have other business partners. Alaska, which I don't want to get into Alaska. That's a different conversation. Illinois, Florida. And it's so appalling at the amount of embedded, inherent xenophobia. So much segregation. It's either you're black or white, and the white people have a lot of white guilt, and the blacks want to purport dominance, right? And use the brown people around them as mercenaries. Now, the whites will do the same thing. The whites will burn you down, burn you out, and treat you as if you're incompetent. There's a quote that I did for one of my movies that has traveled the world titled Boricua en el Medio, which is about Taino resurrection. Because even though the white researchers stated that Tainos are extinct, we are not. And those researchers should really just shut the fuck up. I'm tired of the white agenda, of white people being in control of everything. And when it comes to allies, no, the blacks want you as their bitches. And as someone of black, white, Native American, indigenous descent, spanning every single country, the black and white narrative that exists in the United States is perverse. It's a perverted relationship that I'm not used to. I don't like. I am amalgamated. My family is from every shade, every race, every ethnicity. And to be blessed in that way, I get to see the pros and cons of my family. I get to juxtapose that to what's going on in the world. But when it comes to what's going on out in the world, we also have to look at that the white agenda is very disgusting. You put your white man in charge, and he hires a white woman to lead the way, and she feels as if though she has to uphold the white man. And this black and white narrative is something that I wrote about in Monochrome Culture. No matter how much religion they want to paint on themselves, and they want to talk about their little Lutheranism, which is another exploitive religion, a disgusting religion, and how much they want to claim that they're God fearing and they love Jesus so much. They're all a bunch of fucking hypocrites, the blacks and the whites. And I've been to church with a bunch of them. I have been to sessions and meetings and now working with them directly and having some white asshole breathe down my neck because of her and his xenophobic racist tendencies. I mean, they're so limited that instead of asking questions, they want to crucify. You know, they talk about Jesus so much, and what the only thing they've learned about Christianity is how to crucify other. And me being multicultural, multilingual, multiracial American, I paid my dues. My family has paid their dues. We are all professional. We're either working in the military, in education, working and developing properties and land all throughout. Very international. That when it comes to the white man and woman being in charge, they have too much power, and their power needs to be removed. There's no equity. There's no justice. There's no kindness in Minnesota. They say this thing about Minnesota nice. No, it's Minnesota racist. They're not nice. They're quiet, and then they stab you. And that's what the system is in Minnesota. And Wisconsin, no better. The next state over. And I'm speaking to you from personal experience. So if you're a Minnesotan of monolingual, monoculture, monoracial identity, don't speak for me. Don't speak for others. What you can do is pick up some other languages, go live in a foreign country that is in Europe, go move to Africa, South Central America, like I did, and pay your dues. And I didn't have to do that. I was born abroad. I'm an immigrant. I'm a migrant, and my family has bled and died for this country. And oh, how I regret them doing that, because the people in charge now are such pitiful, pathetic psychopaths. And this is to you, dear racist white principal. This is to you, dear racist white superintendent. If you own your little organizations and community clubs and you segregate, I amalgamate. I come from amalgamation. So living here in Minnesota, living in Wisconsin, and even Alaska, man, Alaska's crime rates is so horrendous. Alaska, it's not a good system to be in. So shout out to places like Puerto Rico. And I'm sorry, Puerto Rico, that the United States of America has raped and abused you and never taken care of you. I'm sorry. I apologize. I come from that. You know, what they did to my grandma and sending doctors to Puerto Rico to perform surgeries where women can't have children anymore, unbeknownst to the women themselves. What they did with the Taino and what they're still currently doing is abhorrent. And shame on you, Minnesota. Shame on you, Wisconsin.